down Carlos Correa of the Houston Astros today. And a few days ago on Twitter, a lot of people were talking about, supination of the foot and external rotation of the hip, and a lot of things broke down into kind of a contest of who knew the most instead of who wanted to get it right and help the most people. And I wrote an article on Twitter or on my blog, Baseball Rebellion, about how I wanted people to speak with more inclusive language. And one of the things I take a lot of pride in, and my staff takes a lot of pride in at Baseball Rebellion, is the way we speak about hitting and throwing and pitching is intentionally using real words in layman's terms so that your average dad and high school kid and even pro player can gain a lot out of watching the videos and understanding it. And you don't have to have like an anatomy undergrad degree or a kinesiology degree to understand what's going on, because that type of language is very elitist and it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're really trying to help a lot of people. So there are three main things that I really want to look at with Correa. The first is how his back knee works as he moves. So one of the things Correa does that's really, really interesting in my opinion is he has this little like wobble in his back leg. So as he lifts his leg, his back knee kind of stays back. So there it is. There's that wobble. It kind of happens here. There it is. And so when he does that little wobble, all right, he's opening up his hip socket from inside the socket, okay? But once he decides to turn, which is here, he clamps everything down and he really fuses the hip, the pelvis, and the back leg, and he pulls everything together. And that's why his back leg moves. So there's no push off of his back leg. You can't push your back leg forward. You can only pull it forward. And so he's pulling from above his pelvis with his obliques and his lats and his back, and his front glute is driving into the ground through his front leg, and he's really pulling everything forward, and that's what gives him the immense power that he has. One of the things I think is really interesting is as he starts this weird little wobble of his leg, the weight is starting to get into the heel of his back foot, and he's starting to lengthen his leg out back, okay? And so as he's lengthening his leg out towards the third base dugout, all right, he's putting himself in a really, really solid position here. Now, his position could be a little bit better, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So if you look at his closed landing of his front foot, what happens when you land closed, and I'm going to show that over here, all right, is you get a circular knee path. So this is extremely important. So his knee is going to work forward for a few frames. It's going to work back for a few frames away from the camera, and then back to the, to the backstop after that. So he has a circular knee path, and there it is. All right, and that's just extremely detrimental to the health of his knee. So he easily could hurt his ankle there, hurt the outside of his knee there, or hurt his hip labrum there, and that's what we want to try to avoid. Your knee only works like a hinge, right? So when we have this circular knee path, we really get in trouble, and we can really put a lot of stress on our front leg and our front hip, and it can actually slow guys down as they run. It can decrease your ability to turn your foot in or turn your foot out, and we want to make sure that our hitters at any level are as healthy as possible for as long as possible. The number one ability of an athlete is availability, and if he starts having hip flexor problems or quad problems or hamstring problems or ankle knee joint problems because of landing closed, because somebody just forced him to do that, that doesn't make a ton of sense. So you can actually see his front foot reject the closed landing right there and get through his heel, pivot on his heel, which is a good thing. That's how you know he's driving back at least with the right muscles, and then end up still even on his heel even more with his front toe up in the air. The last thing I want to talk about is the way that his arms move because of how he's down just a little bit early and he's not quite as flexed as he could be. And this was a pitch that he had to adjust to. So generally we want to have, this is a really good position he's in here, all right? It kind of looks like home plate. But generally we want the hands to be supported by the back shoulder, okay? So I would love to see his back shoulder actually scoop down a little bit more and work more this way. But instead what happens, all right, instead of that upward support that we're looking for, what happens is his hands actually get below his elbow shoots upward, all right, and then his hands immediately roll over through extension, as opposed to hitting the ball a little bit deeper, right, dropping his back shoulder a little bit more, and then having this upward extension through the ball that we see the truly elite players do a lot. Now, when guys are early, sometimes you just got to get the barrel there, and I totally get that. But when Correa, he consistently has this knee wobble in the back side, and when you have that, and your pelvis closes off, and then you land super close with the front side and front knee, you're kind of setting yourself up to have some problems a little bit later in your career, in my opinion, because you're going to have some deficiencies in your muscle function through your front leg. And we want to make sure that we're as healthy as possible, as long as possible. And then as guys do get better and better with their hand path as they get older and more at bats, that's when they tend to really break through with the experience of playing the big leagues and the experience of being around that level of pitching and that level of hitter. They continue to progress with their hand path and their upper body and how their shoulders work together, and everything supports itself and syncs up. So I really think we're going to start to see some better some better hand path for Correa that may or may not result in more extension. It may actually result in less extension like Mike Trout, but if there's extension, it's going to be hopefully upward extension with a lower back shoulder, all right? But the best thing he could possibly do is land with a more open front foot and drive through his heel so that his knee can work just straight back, all right? And his back foot can move just a little bit further, so he has a little bit less of this curvature in his spine at his finish through his lower back and upper back. He'd be better off if his back knee was a little bit further forward and back foot was a little bit further forward, so that he could support himself in a straight line, more like that, instead. So that's what we're looking for. Once again, this is Chaz Pippitt, and this is a Carlos Correa breakdown for Baseball Rebellion. Thank you.